Ladies and gentlemen, here is how I would handle a first class in conversation. The printouts that you may need, that you do need, are if you go to the website to the first hour here, these two, you can print this PDF out. If you have Korean students, it's a little, this one also you can print out because it has identical Korean patterns. But this is the main one we'll be working with. The students do not have books. They don't need pencils or to distract them. Writing, not necessary. What I first do is I go in, I only use the verb study. I don't know these students. I want to see where they are. I ask them, I tell them, I'm going to make a question. Please answer. I only use study. So I say, do you study? Did you study? Will you study? Don't you study? Didn't you study? Won't you study? The positive and the negative. And I see how they respond. The first class, you're going to set up the format of how you're going to be handling the classes in the future. For practice purposes, if I ask a positive question, I want a positive answer. Do you go? I go. If I ask a negative question, I want a negative answer. Don't you go? I don't go. If I ask a positive and they give me a negative, of course this is done in regular conversation, but I want to know if they have heard the positive and can respond, and if they've heard the negative and can respond. So I use the verb study, and I'm checking out the students as we're asking these questions, see who's having difficulty. If they do have some difficulty identifying, do, did, will, don't, didn't, won't in a question, then, you can go back to the website, and there's a section there where we deal with how questions are made. So, but generally, I would first ask them, do you study? I study. Okay. After that, the printout that we have is this. And I would, let me see if I get this right. I would print this out for them and give it to them. Once again, they don't need pencils or paper. If I speak their language, I would express to them that we're going to be learning patterns. We learn about 6 to 8 a class, period. This is a 40-hour course. Why are patterns important? Because they express feelings. Simple sentences, I study, I read, I write, have no feeling. I want to show them how feelings are expressed through patterns. And this is why we will go through these 6 patterns today. The patterns express feelings. Today we're going to be learning, I want to study, I have to study, I try to study, I try studying, I like to study, I like studying, I know how to study, and I need to study. Rather simple. So what I do, I only use at the beginning, study. And I will start with the first one. I will make the question. They'll all repeat the question. They'll all answer the question. When they answer, yes and no are not necessary, just to save time and make it simple. So it would go like this. Do you want to study? They would say, do you want to study? Pause. I want to study. Do they want to study? Do they want to study? They want to study. Does he want to study? Does he want to study? He wants to study. Don't they want to study? Don't they want to study? They don't want to study. I want to see who is having difficulty. This is basically a game of the teacher trying to find out weaknesses. And through the weaknesses, you can develop strengths because you identify the weakness and you change it. If I ask, do you want to study? And they say, I want to study, and they drop 2, it's wrong. You cannot change the pattern. So you're looking for mistakes in order to strengthen the abilities of the students. The mistakes are easy to fix because the pattern never changes. If they try to change the pattern, it's wrong. If they say, I want study, it's wrong. Why is it wrong? Because you have to have 2. Why do you need 2? I don't know. I don't care. It sounds right. It is right. So, after I go through this, then we go to you have to. Do you have to study? Do you have to study? I have to study. Do they have to study? Do they have to study? They have to study. Then I would make a few questions with want, mix it up, see if they're still getting it. Then I would go on to the third pattern. And I would go through all of these 6 patterns. The patterns, once I complete just reviewing this one, then I would come back and change it up. So when I get down to here and I've done the 4th pattern, I would then be asking them, do you like to study? Do you want to study? Do you try to study? Do you have to study? You mix them up. You want to develop their hearing and enable them to respond with the same pattern. It will give them confidence. It develops good habits. We're here to develop habits of speaking. So I would go through all 6 of these. When I get down to here, after I've made some questions and I feel that they're responding correctly, then, you're going to be, once again, do you need to study? Do you try studying? Do you like to study? Do you have to study? Mix them up to see if they're still able to hear it and respond. So, don't you have to go? I don't have to go. Do you like to go? I like to go. Will he know how to do it? He will know how to do it. I want the same tense, either in the positive or the negative. So all that time, I am using only the verb study. Then I can change it up a bit by adding a very simple verb. V is a verb, any verb. Once again, I want to reinforce with them in conversation, despite what they may think, the verb and vocabulary are not important as much as the ability to express yourself. How do you express yourself? Through patterns. They change the feeling. You want to study, you have to study, you try to study, you like to study, you know how to study, you need to study. Completely different feelings. So they're used in conversation all the time. I want to reinforce what they will be hearing most of the time. I'm not here to teach them vocabulary. They have dictionaries that teach vocabulary. I'm not here to teach them higher writing skills, which are very, very difficult. I'm not here to teach them reading skills. This is basically conversation. So I've gone through these patterns, and then to the far right hand, then I would begin to ask them some questions with what, where, why, when, and how. I would stay away from questions with why and how. We'll learn how to answer those questions later. But what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? When do you have to go? Who do you like to talk to? So you've started here. They've become accustomed to it. Let me do this here. Make sure that they know the question making skill. This question making skill is all used here. Then we go through the patterns once, and then at the end we go through what, where, why, when, who, and how. We do those. I then, since we don't have a book, right? What I do, what I found most effective is you just simply get some of these plastic sheets, you know, and I would, if you can afford it, give it to them. If they have to buy it, they have to buy it. But it keeps a clean copy. We'll be referring to this as we go through. Once again, there's 40 hours. There's about 8 patterns in an hour, 6 to 8. It's not a lot to cover, but as we move on, we'll be reviewing what we have studied. So you've developed the format, you've created the atmosphere, they have come to learn how to talk, you're going to help them talk. They're not going to be writing things down. They're not going to be reading books. They're not going to be studying vocabulary, because I'm going to make it simple. When you do these questions also, in the beginning, don't ask questions with the object. I would just say, do you want to study? I would not say, do you want to study English? Do you try to meet him? Do you like to watch TV? That's a verb. So I would try to keep it very simple. You're just getting them used to these simple patterns. As we go along, the patterns will be joined with other patterns. So they must become comfortable with it, gain confidence. You can play games with the students, you know, have you'll be the teacher, bring one student up, you make the question, he repeats the question, they answer it. Or you can, you know, try, you'll be able to figure out a good way to involve the students. I want the students to speak during the class more than I speak. If I can do that, I've had a great class. Thank you.